Hey there, YouTube land, and tonight's review of, well, this movie right here, Michael Myers, Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, is going to be done as a solo act. My son and me just finished watching this. I'm exhausted, and it's 3:30 in the morning, and I'm just going to grab my iPad Air and catch some Z's and get some sleep, and grab some tea. So I'm let my son take it away. You can pass me my iPad and, and the charger, and prepare for a thorough review of Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. It's unique.
It is. I should preface this with the fact that I'm not Dad, so I'm not going to come in and tell you exactly about who made it or who starred in it, because that almost never equates to anything in my head. It's cool, it's interesting. It's always interesting to find out who made something, especially when it's good. But when it's bad, it's bad. And it's bad this time.
No, we have to do this. The movie is directed by Dominique Orton-Gerard, and stars Daniel Harris again, Donald Pleasance, but the kind of the main protagonist of this one, it would be Wendy Kaplan as Tina, and of course we would have the little boy who gets a lot of hate on here, kind of like Wesley Crusher did back in the Star Trek days. And that's what you got to know going into this one. It's a continuation of 4, and 4 did really well, so they rushed this one in without a finished script.
Dad will be the voice of production. Matthew,
that's obvious there. So
review.
The review is coming from Matthew, and I am out of here.
All right.
It is time for tea.
All right. Well, it's been a year since we last saw Michael, who, seen the last film, was completely and utterly destroyed by the state police. Shot up, blown up, everything. But thanks to the beginning, we find out that he crawled out through a strange hole in the ground and ended up in a river and floated downriver and met an old man who nursed him back to health over the course of a year. And where we find ourselves is that year later. After the whole stabbing incident at the end of the 4th film, Jamie has been sent to a children's psychiatric clinic place where she has been mute ever since that day. And she's frequently visited by one of the best parts of Part 4, most interesting character that could have went along, Rachel. Before I say anything, Rachel, just as good as last time. One problem. She dies. She's not the main character this time. Not at all. We are instead graciously gifted with her friend Tina, who, oh man, it's like they wanted to kill off the one thing that was very Halloween, the like responsible, cool teenager. They just, I don't know, watched Friday the 13th. They're like, what if we took all the characters that you usually see die first in Friday the 13th? The like manic, crazy, like, wow, hey, girl, and made her the protagonist. It made her do that 24/7. Just the entire film is her bopping around and jumping and being the exact opposite of a protagonist in one of these films. There's a scene, actually, midway through the film where they're at this party, and her friend comes up to her and is like, I got a great idea on what we should do. Whispers something in her ear, and then the friend runs out screaming to these police officers. 2 police officers have been told to watch Tina like a hawk, even though I'll get to them in a second. We're told to watch Tina like a hawk because the person who massacred a whole bunch of the town last year, only a year ago, is back, possibly, and going after her. And, jeez, her friend comes out, starts screaming, yelling. Tina, our protagonist, comes out, screaming, yelling, and their friend in a Michael Myers suit comes out, and they do a little like, oh, don't take me, take my friend, she's a virgin, and the guy in the Michael Myers suit's like, got her number. Just This is the protagonist. This is our protagonist. This is the person we follow through most of the film. Yeah, Danielle Harris is there, and she's still very much technically the mini-protagonist, or little child, who, though she spends most of the time mute, and though I do like her acting, mildly overacting for the parts where she's being Michael or having seizures because Michael's being super evil. But Tina is our replacement for Rachel. She is our teenage protagonist here. She is what comes after Rachel and Laurie. And she runs out and makes light of the massacre that happened a year ago. When she is directly friends with the person the killer attacked. You know what the funniest part about all that is? The scene afterwards is them running into a barn, finding a box of kittens, and going, "Kittens!" and then jumping around and dancing and having fun again. Because his character is as literally one-dimensional as is physically possible without being Rob Zombie's Halloween. But I think I've riffed a bit too much here on the thing. I should note that there are good stuff. Tina's not one of them. Good stuff would be along the lines of, I like the scenes that Rachel does have are well done. And it makes it even worse when she dies in this film, because you want to see her taking up the role she did in the last film as Jamie's protector. And sure, you could say, well, what about Loomis? Loomis is in this film. Loomis kind of takes up that role. But Loomis is also jarringly changed. We talked in our last review about how, yeah, Loomis was getting darker and he's more desperate here. He went totally against what he said in the first film. But, man, oh man, there's like several scenes where he either directly yells at Laurie and blames her for everything, freaks out and almost attacks her, or near the end of the film, breaks the police radio, points a gun at an officer, and holds Jamie in place, saying, come get her, Michael," as bait. Which, I don't care how, like, scared and how desperate he was, this isn't the nice Loomis we knew before at all. It doesn't seem like Loomis at all. It's not maybe as... Actually, I would actually say it's pretty akin to Zombie 2, where it's like, oh, he's suddenly an asshole. But actually, and this is you can't even tell my father said this. This is the only time I'm going to give anything to Zombie. They at least foreshadowed the fact that he was okay with profiting off of death in the first Zombie film. So when he's a total dick in the second Zombie film, though it's out of nowhere, at least there was some foreshadowing. Here, he is just crazy and questionable and potentially kind of evil. There's also The Man in Black. This film is the first film, technically, I don't know if you know who The Man in Black is. Technically, it's not. This is the first one with The Man in Black in it. And from what Father told me, the way this came in was they just filmed these scenes essentially afterwards, after the director had left, when they saw someone who came to watch the filming with a long overcoat and stuff like that. There's several scenes where the Man in Black appears. You see his steel-toed boots and stuff like that. It honestly doesn't make any sense for what's going on. For one, it has nothing to do with anything at all. It only really comes up during the ending, the crazy Dick Tracy scene. But other than that, they do introduce a few things that are going to be coming into the review we do tomorrow, part 6. The Thorn tattoo appears on his wrist the first time you see it. Obviously, this is the Thorn trilogy, so it's prevalent and important. It also appears in his house for a scene, though it's not really like accented. You just see it in the background. Uh, I heard they had different plans for it originally, with the Satanist like putting it on his hand, and then they decided it would be better to explain that in another film. You're going to see a lot tomorrow how I think that's the opposite of a good thing, and Dad doesn't. But this is such a step down. Cinematically, actually, I'll give it that. It has some really good shots. There's a few scenes. There's several scenes with Jamie in an old laundry chute. That's really nice and like really well done. There's a few like overhead shots. They bring back the little drink there. They bring back the classic Halloween shots. The one thing that I didn't think was missing in 4. The 4 didn't really need it, which was the like, say I was doing this review right here. You see Michael's face like here or off in the distance. The ominous like looming shots that was in the first one where you could see him and he was back there, but no one else saw him, and it was cool. It was suspenseful, but even though he does that, and there's actually one scene where you just see him in the background for like a long amount of time, and it kind of overstays its welcome. It's a scene in the park when they first meet the ridiculous character of Mikey, this cool guy who almost says nothing in the film, who drives around in his car. This film really does feel like a Friday the 13th film, a bad Friday the 13th film. It feels like they wanted that. They wanted that, like, ditzy characters, less of an interesting, like, compelling protagonist, and more along, like, those lines, more of the, like, ditzy characters. Though, you still have, Daniel Harris, obviously, but muted and doing the weird overacting thing. It's a bit weird. There's some scenes where I didn't even know what was going on, like when they go into the attic, but it's bad. I don't like the film. I thought it was a terrible, terrible step down, and that's sad because part 4, 1, 2, perfect. 10 years later, where are we going with it? Great. What's the follow-up? Basically a weird filler setup for the 6th film. It continues the story, but poorly. It does introduce some interesting things. The whole idea of someone who can kind of see what Michael sees with Daniel Harris's character for like a little bit. I don't like what they do with Loomis. The mask, by the way, is vastly like worse in this film. It kind of like it's weird because there's actually, as I mentioned, there's a scene with the fake killer, and his mask like perfectly fits in here, and it's kind of, you know, it's streamlined. It looks nice, but Michael's mask itself really just poofs out. It doesn't go in here. It poofs out. His head looks ridiculously big for a lot of the film. And aside from that, aside from seeing him, aside from people acting uncharacteristically, Dad mentioned the kid that was in it. I didn't find him that bad. There's a really, really bad scene with Daniel Harris where she's like, she's speaking for the first time again, but she's like yelling things weirdly and the kid's talking for her. But I think Daniel Harris was probably the best part of this film. Donald Pleasance's character, Loomis, completely out there this time. Tina, the new protagonist, was awful. The two bumbling idiot cops, they literally, the first time they appear on screen, have one of those like squeaky noise, like boo 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 doo 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 doo. That's something you should never hear in a Halloween film. Never should there be a squeaky clown noise and boo boo doo boo doo doo. There shouldn't be that in any horror film ever. But Halloween, this thing, nice cover by the way. One of the few good things about this. No, you don't get weird clown noises or characters like that in this film. It's supposed to be serious. It doesn't need comic relief. It needed Rachel. If they continue with the Rachel storyline and the Rachel, Daniel, Harris, Jamie, back and forth, that would have been nice. I think that would have made for a much better film. I think if they would have kept Donald Pleasance's character, Loomis, more in tune with what he was before, that would have been a lot better. But it's clear that this film was rushed, and that they wanted to do an origin thing, I guess. Even though, apparently, Donald Pleasance thought it was the last film, because he had his character technically die here, though he doesn't actually do so, because he's in the next film. It could have been so much better, especially considering what came before it, and it had most of the cast from what came before it. And that's sad, especially when you set the bar so high with 4. Tomorrow we'll be reviewing part 6. I don't know which one I dislike more, part 5 or part 6. I suppose you'll find out tomorrow. Part 5, though, just really stings after part 4. Just really stings. And I think it definitely could have used a lot less everything it was. Actually, it could have used a lot less of all of that. If they just stuck with the theme, it would have been a great, great film. But they didn't. They decided they wanted to go more Friday the 13th. Not that I don't like the Friday the 13th film, but I like my films staying to their theme, like 4 did. Even, to an extent, 3, as weirdly magical as it was, stuck to that, serious, dark, impending doom on Halloween theme. And this one, it's more Halloween mixed with Friday the 13th, mixed with just awful, really. And I suppose that'll be it for me. I think that I've said all I can say about everything that really fundamentally was wrong with the film. Not to mention, the characters are one-dimensional. I'll just do a little quick thing. Characters are very one-dimensional. Rachel's death really, really impacts the film because Tina does not. Tina is nowhere near what she was. Even in this film, bad as this film is, her one or 2 real big scenes where she's in it, they were better than literally any scene with Tina in it. Getting Danielle Harris to overact. Danielle Harris was a good actor in the last one. In this one, she still got some of it, but some of those scenes just push it a bit too far. And the whole mystical connection thing, as well as vague lines from Loomis about you don't do you know how he has this power over you, or you've got to soothe the rage, Michael. You kill all these people because of the rage. It can only be soothed if you talk to Jamie. It doesn't. I do like the premise of him being able to be helped by a kid. He sees something in her that was in him. And one of my favorite scenes actually is the scene where she says uncle and gets him to take off his mask. And he cries when she says you're just like me. Which is kind of cool. I do like it. And I know this is kind of hypocritical for me, who said I don't like the humanizing of Michael or anything. But it is a nice scene. And I think with the theme they're going for, it fits. Though it oversteps most of everything else in the film. So I'll give it that. I will give it that scene and the theme of her being able to help. That doesn't come into the next film whatsoever. The next film makes everything a little bit more supernatural. That has been my review of this. I think you've got the message. It was just, I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It was a vast step down, terrible characterization, terrible use of characters and misuse of characters, terrible characters overall, and just a really poor step in the franchise. And it can really only go down from here. Even the producer's cut, Dad's going to say this later, but even the producer's cut. Join us next time. Tomorrow we'll have a review of the special Supernatural Halloween 6 Curse of Michael Myers. Oh, and this isn't any Curse of the Puppet Master stuff. This is a real curse in a film that doesn't need it. Thank you for watching, and I guess now it's time for me.